So, we've spoken about the Ryder Cup team and how good their impacts are. But how are they going to arrive at impact correctly? Well, if you're going to be a consistent player and hit consistent strokes, you've got various responsibilities. One of them is that you need to learn to move the club round your body in the correct arc shape. And what we're looking for is a fairly neutral arc. We don't want your arc coming outside here too much or too much inside. And thankfully most of the Ryder Cup team there have got very pure golf swings. They move the club nicely on plane. When I say on plane, the angle the club's designed on, they're tending to keep that relationship pretty similar. So your Jamie Donaldsons, your McIlroys, your Poulters, Thomas Bjorn, Gallagher, etc. are tending to move that club on very efficient lines, just to name a few. So how are we going to learn that, and how are you going to get the feel of that yourself? That's important. Well, basically, as I say, the club dictates the angle it would like to be swung on, and you can do it various ways. Here with a basket of balls, I can illustrate that just with a board. And if I place the board here and just mirrored the angle of my club shaft for that particular club I'm using. Here I've got a 7-iron. So this board here represents the plane, and I'm trying to swing the club backwards initially, then fold it up this plane. So notice how the relationship to the plane has stayed the same. I'm not letting the club get too flat or too steep. Neither of these are going to find the golf ball without some sort of compensation. So the more you move off plane, the more you're going to have to recruit more help to get that club back on plane. Now we know that's not impossible. Obviously in the US team you've got Jim Furyk here, and he gets it back on plane through impact, and that's the most important thing. But how can we make that job simpler? So certainly something like this would help you. Failing that, very simple things you can do at home just with your alignment canes. If you place one directly behind the ball, and then place another just here up the grip. You won't be able to form a perfect setup as it's sat on your left hip, but now when you take the club away, you'll get the feel of the club head and the shaft pointing at the base of this plane line here. So I've not whipped the club in too early, I've not lifted it out, I'm letting the club follow this line. So if there was a torch in the end of the shaft, it's pointing at an extension of this line here. Then I'm going to fold the club up. Notice how this is now picking up that plane line. And if I move that a little closer, you can see it here. So I'm picking up the base of the plane, or the extension of my target line here. What I'm not doing is whizzing it round this way too much, or picking it up too steep. As a general rule here, it's going backwards and then folding up through the right bicep here and the right forearm. As the hands increase, they're going up through my right shoulder here. So the label on your shaft, in simple terms, if you're swinging that up towards your right shoulder, you're not going to be in bad shape. A lot of club players will get the plane wrong very early in the takeaway. They will generally tend to be a little too handsy too soon. We've heard about the one-piece takeaway. Well, basically, if I use something like a little water bottle here, and I just placed it a couple, 3 feet back and just slightly inside my target line here. If I imagine there was a ball on it, or I was just going to brush the top of it, this is the feeling you're looking for in the takeaway. Notice how quiet my hands are. They're being influenced or moved by a little right hip turn, right shoulder turn, and my hands and arms are moving backwards. They're moving back in a particular corridor or lane. I'm not forcing my hands out, because if you push one end of the handle out, the other end of the club will react. If you pick one up, it'll go this way. So we're trying to keep the hands in a similar corridor, let the club head track over that bottle, so that almost, you could argue, there's a little bit of a backward phase as you turn, and then that turns into an in and upward phase. The golf swing's 3-dimensional. The club's doing 3 things, going backwards, upwards and inwards, all at the same time. If you get an imbalance in any of those, too much up, too much in, too much back, your swing isn't going to be the right shape. So remember, our goal is to develop a backswing and downswing that are moving the club on the correct shape. then subtle adjustments to this will allow you to successfully draw and fade your ball. So get a little bit of practice, do some work in the mirror, help with these little practice stations. That's going to help you develop the best feel of the correct plane.